You just met someone, they told you their name, you smiled, you nodded, and 3 seconds later, it's completely gone. Not blurry, gone. Like it was never even there. If that's happened to you, I want you to stay right here, because what's actually going on inside your brain when this happens is way more fascinating than you think. And no, it does not mean you have a bad memory. It means something very specific is happening. And once you understand it, you'll never look at yourself the same way again. Let's start with the basics of why names, specifically names, are so brutally hard to remember. Not faces, not voices, not even long conversations, just names. Why? Here's the thing. When your brain processes information, it looks for hooks. It looks for meaning, context, emotion, something to attach the new information to. When you see a red apple, your brain immediately connects it to taste, to color, to childhood memories, to grocery stores. It has a whole web of associations. But when someone says, "Hi, I'm Daniel," your brain gets almost nothing. Daniel doesn't look like a Daniel. The name carries zero visual information, zero personal meaning, and zero emotional weight. It's just a sound. And your brain, frankly, doesn't care about sounds that don't mean anything yet. Psychologists call this the Baker-Baker paradox, and it's one of the most elegant demonstrations of how human memory actually works. In a study, two groups of people were shown the same photograph of a man. One group was told, "This man is a baker." The other group was told, "This man's last name is Baker." Later, when both groups were tested, the people who were told his profession remembered it far more easily than the people who were told his surname. Same word, completely different recall. Because baker, as a profession, gives your brain an image. Flour on hands, a warm kitchen, the smell of bread. Baker, as a name, gives your brain absolutely nothing to hold on to. And that's exactly what happens every single time someone introduces themselves to you. Now here's where it gets really interesting. People who forget names easily are very often the same people who are extremely present in conversations. And that sounds like a compliment, because it is. When you're genuinely engaged with someone, when you're reading their body language, processing their emotions, thinking about what to say next, your brain is running at full capacity. There's simply not enough left over to encode a random sound that appeared in the first 5 seconds. Neuroscientists call this cognitive load, and it's real. Your working memory has a limit. Highly engaged, empathetic, socially aware people hit that limit faster than most. So the next time you forget someone's name, ask yourself, were you actually paying attention to them as a human being? Because the research suggests that's exactly what was happening. But let's go deeper, because there's another layer here that almost nobody talks about, and it has to do with anxiety. For a lot of people, the moment of introduction is the most stressful moment in a social interaction. You're being evaluated, you're figuring out the vibe, you're deciding whether you like this person. You're managing your own nervousness. And in that small window of stress, your hippocampus, the part of your brain responsible for converting short-term information into long-term memory, gets partially hijacked by your amygdala, which is your brain's alarm system. Cortisol spikes, attention narrows, and the name? It slips right through the gap. This is why people with social anxiety, or even mild social nervousness, forget names at a significantly higher rate than people who feel completely at ease in social situations. It's not carelessness, it's neurochemistry. And then there's something called attentional bias, which works against name memory in a fascinating way. When you meet someone new, your brain is automatically scanning for threats, for familiarity, for social cues. It's running an ancient program designed for survival, not for polite social introductions. Our ancestors didn't need to remember the name of the person at the networking event. They needed to know if that person was safe or dangerous, friend or enemy. Your brain still runs that old software, and names are just not part of the core program. Now, I want to talk about something that will hit close to home for a lot of you. There's a specific personality type that forgets names almost universally, and it's the people who think in pictures rather than words. Psychologists call this visual spatial thinking. If you're someone who dreams in vivid images, who instinctively draws or doodles when you're thinking, who navigates by landmarks instead of street names, who remembers exactly what someone was wearing but has no idea what they said, then your brain processes the world primarily through visuals. And names? Names are purely linguistic. They exist in a completely different processing system. There's a fundamental mismatch happening, and it's not a flaw. It's just how your particular kind of mind is built. People like Einstein, Tesla, and countless other extraordinarily gifted thinkers were known for being absolutely terrible with names. That's not a coincidence. There's also something called trait memory selectivity, and this one is genuinely beautiful when you understand it. Some people's brains automatically filter and prioritize what gets stored based on emotional and personal relevance. If a piece of information matters to you on a deep level, your brain will fight to keep it. If it doesn't, it lets it go. People who forget names are very often people whose memory systems are optimized for meaning, for patterns, for feelings. They'll remember the exact emotion of a conversation years later, but have no idea what the person's name was. They remember ideas better than labels, concepts better than titles, feelings better than facts. That's not a broken memory. That's a memory with very specific priorities. Now, here's something nobody tells you about the social side of this. Forgetting someone's name, especially someone you've met before, carries this enormous invisible shame for a lot of people. There's this assumption baked into our culture that remembering names is a sign of respect and forgetting them is a sign of not caring. But that assumption is completely wrong, and the psychology actually proves it. Some of the most caring, deeply attentive, emotionally intelligent people in any room are also the ones frantically pretending they remember your name while internally panicking. The people who are least likely to forget your name, studies suggest they tend to be more socially calculated, more focused on impression management, more deliberate in how they come across. Remembering names is often a rehearsed skill, not a natural one. Politicians are trained to do it. Sales professionals practice it. It's a technique, not a measure of how much someone values you. So if someone forgets your name, the kindest and most accurate interpretation is almost always this: they were too busy being genuinely human with you to run the name storage protocol in the background. And if you're the one who forgets, understand this: your brain is not broken. Your brain is just doing something else, something arguably more important. It's connecting, feeling, processing, and experiencing. The name was the least interesting part of the person to you, and in some deep, nonverbal way, that might actually be the most respectful thing of all. You were too busy seeing them to file them. There's a small but powerful shift that memory researchers recommend, and it works surprisingly well. The moment someone tells you their name, use it. Say it back. "It's great to meet you, Sarah." And then, this is the part people skip, connect it to something visual or emotional in that same instant. Something about Sarah that you'll actually remember. The way she smiled when she said it, that she reminds you of someone, anything. You're building the hook that your brain was never given automatically. You can also simply ask again. Radical idea, I know, but "I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name," said within the first few minutes, is socially forgivable to almost everyone. It's the pretending 3 days later that creates the real problem. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. The way your memory works is not random. It's a direct reflection of what your brain values. And if your brain keeps releasing names while holding on to emotions, conversations, ideas, and moments, then your memory is telling you something about who you are. You are someone who experiences people, not catalogs them. That is not a weakness dressed up as an explanation. That is genuinely, neurologically, psychologically, a different kind of intelligence. Now I want to hear from you. Do you forget names constantly, or do you remember them easily? And if you forget them, what do you actually remember instead? Tell me in the comments, because I have a feeling the answers are going to say a lot more about all of us than any name ever could.